Welcome to the Commission meeting of February 6, 2020. Commissioners present are President Mary Wardell Gilgucci, Commissioners Lee, Mall, and Wong. Commissioner Dunning is expected. Commissioners Wolf and Ono are excused.
Thank you very much, Secretary Blackman. Thank you for the members of the public who are with us at the beginning of our meeting. If you haven't already done so, the materials to supplement what the agenda items for today's meeting is here available to you on the left. We have a total of 5 items on our agenda today. And so we're going to begin with item number 1, which is opening it up for general public comment.
Can you adjust this somewhat?
We can hear you.
Peter Warfield. I don't hear it. Is it picking up?
Yeah, it is.
I'm Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. Not sure that this microphone is working properly. A number of items are not on the agenda that one might expect to be. First of all, the library has installed a new homepage, a new website homepage, and it's chaos and confusion and a complete mess in terms of any kind of hierarchy. There are individual books along with vague subject matter listings. It's difficult to find things. Some things aren't even there that are supposed to be there. We can go into that if you have questions about that. It's a mess, and not a single librarian that I've talked with has had anything good to say about it. Facebook. Hardly a week goes by, let alone days go by, without more problems with Facebook, particularly with respect to privacy as well as the contents. And yet the library continues to insist on touting Facebook and other very problematic social media things on its At the Library monthly calendar. And it doesn't just happen once. Get Social, and it shows Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I might also mention that there are cookies right at the front of the first page of the new website. And the idea that people would have to deal with privacy-busting cookies and how the library is using that. Kids coming in, are they going to accept them or not? And what are the supposed benefits of accepting those cookies? Not a word of it is on that atrocious website that we now newly have installed. I understand there was no advance seeking of assistance from patrons or librarians when it might do some good. I understand there might have been some query to librarians a week before installation. Others said they had made comments after installation. Second, or maybe third, the library's method for getting people into events continues to have RSVPs and so-called ticketing from an outside agency, in this case, Eventbrite. I think that's appalling. Free and equal access is not assisted when those who have less or no access to computers have no alternative way to get a so-called ticket. None whatsoever. And then Eventbrite requires all kinds of information, hustles you about 5 or 6 times to sign up for Facebook and other privacy-busting things, and then has to send you an email and further bothers you with further solicitations down the road. It's unacceptable.
Public comment?
Good evening, Commissioners. Did you miss me? Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. First, I'd like to say I concur with Mr. Warfield's comments about the website. I went in there and I've used the classic catalog, and all of a sudden one day it was gone. No announcements, no warning, no nothing. And it used to have the main library branch hours on the home page. Now they're not there, and you have to go hunting and pecking try to find out, and they do vary from day to day. While members of the City Hall family continue to pretend how shocked they are regarding the disclosures of corruption at the Department of Public Works, or more correctly, San Francisco Public Works, I know well how hypocritical their comments are. The corruption here at the San Francisco Public Library is the group known as the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. It's a scam, and you all know it. Thomas Aquinas teaches willful ignorance of what one ought to know is a mortal sin. The members of this board have chosen for years to be willfully ignorant of this corruption, and that's what it is, corruption. No group collects millions of dollars a year, gives 10% or less of that money to what they're telling the public it's going for, and can be called anything but corrupt. Former city librarian Luis Herrera accepted thousands of dollars of gifts from his group, and perjured himself when filing his annual statements of economic interest. He got $5,000 or more a year from that group and then lied to the public on his SEIs. James Chafee, Peter Warfield, and I had to take him to the Fair Political Practices Commission in Sacramento to hold him responsible, because the San Francisco Ethics Commission was as willfully blind as you are. I want to make something very clear now. The person now fully responsible for the continuation of the scam is your current city librarian, Michael Lambert. You've had years to counter any of these things I've said. I've shown you the public documents, and you sit there like lumps on a log. Be very, very ashamed of yourself.
Further public comment? Okay, we're going to move on to item number 2 on our agenda, which is a discussion and action item for the Commission on the fiscal years 2021 and 2022 budget. The documents, as I said earlier, are there, and our COO of the San Francisco Public Library, Maureen Singleton, is going to walk us through it.
Good afternoon, Commissioners and members of the public. I'm happy to be here today to have our third discussion on the proposed budget for the upcoming budget cycle that covers fiscal years 21 and 22. We're going to do a quick review of what's been presented before, discuss some budget options, and then seek the Commission's approval of a budget for us to submit to the City on or before February 21st. This is the standard budget calendar that you see every cycle and multiple times every cycle. So it breaks it out to show that we do budget. There are 3 key phases: budget development, budget negotiations, and budget finalization. We're in the development phase, and with today being the day that we are seeking the Commission's approval of a budget. These are our strategic and budget priorities. This is how we build our budget every cycle. This is where we take a look and envision the future. We build on the foundation, and we use these priorities as our guideposts to build a budget and sustain investments that we've done in prior cycles. At a high level, this is a summary of what was presented to the Commission in January and also in December. This is available in Attachment 1 for the detailed analysis. You can see the proposed investment total for fiscal 21 is approximately $12.4 million, with the key focus there being on investments in capital and also IT, and then continued investments in our collections budget, both with addressing the tariffs that are happening and also investing in our honor-bound proposal for book giveaways, partnering with key agencies, and making sure that there are some books available and trying to connect folks to the library services that we have. For fiscal 22, again, the total that we've talked about before is $16.82 million, with the majority of that allocated again for capital, with approximately 13.5 of that available for the Ocean View Branch Library project, which is continuing to evolve as we take a look at what the final new site project might look like with time. What we'd like to present to the commissioners today are two budget options specifically. The first is the one that we just presented to you, but we also, as I mentioned, discussed in detail in January. And then the second option would be an adaptation of what was presented in January with some 3 key changes that are highlighted here for your review. The first key change is taking the idea of financial coaching that was presented in January, where we said we wanted to move from 1 day a week financial coaching to 3 days a week. Previously, this is something that we had partnered with the Treasurer Tax Collector's Office and the Mayor's Office, where they had some grant funds that were covering other days. The proposal in January, again, was for 3 days. What we would like to propose in option 2 is taking that all the way out to 5 days a week, and that would represent an additional cost of $57,000 above what was presented in January, for a total growth between the $55,000 presented in January and the $57,000 now of $112,000, for a total new budget of $137,000 for financial coaching. The other additional idea is establishing a gender-neutral public restroom here at the main library. This would be expanding on the Urban Alchemy budget right now, where they are monitoring our restrooms here at the main library that are gender-specific and allowing us to have gender-neutral restrooms in stalls on the 4th or 5th floor. The estimated cost for doing that on an annual basis to monitor those restrooms would be $120,000 annually. And then the final proposal there is to grow the roofing budget allocation in year 2 by another $500,000. You may recall that what was presented in December and January was $1 million per year for the roofing program, to make sure that we have money available to address the roofing needs as they arrive and based on a priority list that our facilities division has. So for year 2, which is fiscal 22, that would change that total budget from $1 million to $1.5 million. So the difference in cost by each fiscal year is approximately $177,000 extra dollars in fiscal 21. And then for 22, you're looking at $677,000, which includes the annualization of the first 2 proposals. So what does that look like on a total budget level, broken out by major cost categories? For budget option 1, this is no different than what we presented to you in January. You're still looking at a total budget of $182.5 million, with an estimated use of fund balance of $10.28 million. For fiscal 22, you're looking at a budget of $169.79 million and no estimated fund balance use for that year. If you were to approve budget option 2, that would kick up the budget just a little bit in fiscal year 21. So instead of 182.5, you would be at 182.7, with a fund balance use of $10.46 million, so just slightly higher. And then in fiscal 22, you would be looking at a total budget of $170.47 million, with around a $700,000 use of fund balance in that year. What does this mean? So the next steps would be for the commission to tell us which budget option you would be interested in, 1, 2, or 3, with 3 being a joint decision with the commission, that is some combination thereof of option 1 or 2, or other ideas that you might propose. If you were to propose option 1, again, that's a $182.5 million budget, a fund balance use of nearly $10.3 million. That would leave us with an estimated fund balance of approximately $10.12 million. In '22, we're looking at, again, a budget of $169.8 million. No estimated fund balance use. And the remaining fund balance, I have a typo correction there. It says 10.21. That is just a transposing of numbers. It should be 10.12. So I apologize for that clerical error because it would be the same fund balance as fiscal '21. Again, for option 2, you're looking at a total budget of 182.7 with a fund balance use of 10.46. That would leave us with an estimated remaining LPF fund balance of $9 million.94. And for fiscal '22, a total budget of 170.47, fund balance use, again, of just shy of $700,000, with an estimated fund balance at the end of '22 being approximately $9.26 million. So, and again, there's always option 3 if you as a commission decide to do a combination thereof of what's been presented. The budget does need to be submitted on or before February 21st of this month, and I am available as well as all the chiefs should you have questions about the proposals after public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen, for that very detailed presentation and for continuing to clarify and build, help us understand what the budget options are. At this time, we're going to move to public comment, and then we'll have the commissions move into their discussion.
Commission members, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. In all the years I've been attending Library Commission meetings, your perfunctory blessing of the budget is absolutely the only serious thing I have ever seen you do. Everything else that occurs in these meetings is no more than a dog and pony show, and I believe that's just the way you like it. Presentations by members of the SFPL staff show clearly the wonderful work they do, and I've on several occasions, numerous occasions, said my problem is not with the library staff, the library products, but with this administration and this library commission. That work of the staff is reduced to nothing but pretty pictures to make it seem as if you, the library commission, actually do something. Often I feel as if the members of this commission have barely given a glance to anything prior to coming here, other than, isn't it wonderful? Your comments are generally uninformed and disinterested. I spend literally hours reviewing the packet and formalizing my comments. You just check the boxes and then pat yourself on the back and leave feeling very smug. Over a decade I've been coming here, and I have yet to hear anything done by this commission of any significance. You are puppets of the mayor who appointed you, and what they put in front of you, you sign. And just to prove you're not asleep, you ask questions which for the most part are the most, it just seems to me you're uninterested. And again, I seriously doubt any of you looks at these materials before you walk in the room, and then you do so while the presentations are going.
Further public comment?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. I think it would be useful to have a functioning microphone and not one that I have to use one of my hands to hold close enough to be heard. First of all, I'm disappointed that you're not meeting on February 20th as scheduled originally in your annual plan. That means you've got one less meeting for the budget, which is probably the most important thing that you can do. Which is probably the most important thing that you can do in your jobs. The book budget looks like the collections budget looks like it's 10.6% of the total, which is very low. We have heard in past years that one wants to aim toward 15% of the budget for books and materials, now known as collections. And you're on the very, very, very lowest portion of the 10 to 15%. And collections is basically the major thing you provide to the public. I'm also concerned with huge increases in e-materials, many of which are showing increases in usage because that's the only choice you've given people. You're no longer giving people a whole range of materials in print, but forcing them to go to e-materials and then touting how popular your e-materials are. Unfortunately, quite a number of your materials are also unique to platforms and technology that individuals have to buy. It's pay to play. It is not free and equal access. When I come to the library in person, I should be able to get, and everybody should be able to get the maximum use of library materials and functions. You can't read a whole range of materials that are on Axis or on a whole range of platforms, and the library just simply doesn't have those available when you are here. You have no idea what those are. In some cases, that's the only format that a book may be available, and that's wrong. I would like to see a lot of attention paid to access to collections. So, for example, speedier purchasing of books and making books available particularly popular books that can be months before you get your hands on them when you get on a waiting list. I would like to see some attention paid to that, for example, by having reference books. I'd like to see there would be some way, as I said, to make those books available quicker to the public, perhaps on a reference basis. They're not now available many times for months.
Further public comment?
James from Ocean View Library, and in your budget, I'm looking at item number 4, create a senior playground at the Richmond Branch Library, and I don't see that where we planning or use the land at Ocean View in terms of planning. And my concern is that I thought we were just going to focus on was this something in the plan, or was this thought about in terms of how much land they had to make a playground over there? And I don't see it mentioned here, so I have some concerns. The other comment I want to say, having been I'm the president of the Commission on Aging for 11 years and serving. I understand how much work it is, and you do this on your own time. And my term ended in terms of discovering I had swelling on my retina, but we do it as a public service, which I think I know you're doing, and you're giving up your time. And it's a lot of reading. And I just want you to know that we appreciate your service. Thank you.
Further public comment?
Mary Harris, President of My Neighbors in Action and District 11 Council. And just came back to I heard your budget the last meeting, and I just wanted to hope that it moves forward for the 2 years. And I wanted to say that we're very appreciative. We know this is like a one-time, wonderful, dream come true opportunity, but we think that it will serve our community in many ways that it's not served right now, because It's just too small of a branch, and we've outgrown it. And we think it'll serve the new developments, especially Park Merced that's nearby, and that other parts of the city will also use this library. So I thank you, and I hope that you will move this budget forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Monica Chinchilla. I'm here on behalf of Supervisor Asha Safai. We're very excited to see the $8 million investment here in fiscal year 21 and the 13.5 in fiscal year 22. I cannot tell you how much excitement this project brings to the community, wherever we're at, different events, just people are so thrilled to see potentially this kind of investment in the neighborhood. And just for all, I want to give a thank you to all your staff members who worked on the feasibility report, just really outlaying just the facts and the makeup of the neighborhood that gives strength to the argument that we need a larger community library for this neighborhood. But that feasibility report I just give to everyone because it's so great to just have a narrative of our community that it can help shape future work around not just libraries but in other things we do. So thank you for this proposal. We hope it moves forward, and we look forward to continue working with you. And thank you to City Librarian Lampert.
Further public comment? Seeing that there's none, we're going to move commission into our discussion as well as action. You have before you this is the third discussion we've had about this two-year budget. We've been asking questions over the last two commission meetings. You have an opportunity to ask more questions today and get any clarification that we may have, any commentary. And I would like to move us to the place after our discussion to make a motion and take some action on this information that Maureen Singleton has provided for us. Commissioner Wong.
Thank you, Marina, as always, for the fantastic budget preparations. Just to set us up for the conversation, could you share more detail around option 2 and where it came from, the various proposals that was considered to be a part of option 2, all the background?
Sure. So with respect to the proposal for the financial coaching, when we first talked about the idea at management team of expanding it, we thought that we would get some information on what would it cost to take us to 3 days and consider coming back with you with an option for 5 days. So to have both of those on the table for you to consider, we definitely see that the financial coach is booked up, and we would like to create as many opportunities as possible for the public to take advantage of this vital tool and resource. So that was built out in concert with Michelle to figure out what options would be available and how assertive we wanted to be in considering this program. And then with respect to the single gender restroom or the gender neutral restroom, excuse me, this was an idea that the Chief of Maine came up with in a way to consider how do we expand access to folks beyond the gender-specific restrooms that we have here at the library, and then also recognizing the benefit that we've had from the monitoring program that we've been using to keep the bathrooms in good order, connect with security, and connect with custodial as needed. And we've seen an uptick in patron satisfaction in the restrooms since we've instituted that program. And then on the roofing program, roofs are expensive, and we keep waiting for the economy to change and the prices to come down, and we're just not seeing that yet. And so we want to make sure that we continue to allocate money to make sure that we have stuff available for us as we identify which project needs to go next at a given time, to make sure that we have sufficient funding and that we're not delaying something because we need to wait for a subsequent cycle. And so that one in particular was developed with a lot of work with our facilities division to take a look at our universe of roofs, what age they are, what condition they're in, what are some of the problems that we see cropping up over time, and what would be the solution to those over time. Because sometimes you can do small fixes and that's fine, and then other times it requires a larger job. So that's generally how we came about with those proposals.
Great, thank you. And were there other themes, maybe, you don't have to get into specific projects if we don't have it available, but were there other themes that were on the table that were discussed? Just curious what the entire universe is, so to speak.
When we started this cycle, our biggest focus was on capital, so really being aggressive about investing in the branch projects that were on the horizon and thinking about overall good stewardship through maintenance and repair of that. So that was the key focus on the proposals that the management team submitted and that we eventually refined to present to the commission.
Thank you.
Commissioner Mull?
Thank you, as always. Sorry. The public asked about the senior playground at the Richmond branch. It's in the budget, isn't it?
Yeah, so that's in option 1, and it would be locating that senior playground at the Richmond Library next to where the youth playground is, so that we can make sure that they're within sight lines of each other. So it's outside the backside of the Richmond Library. And this was presented both in February and December and January.
I thought that was a concern of the public, the last speaker.
Yes, and because I wasn't totally sure if the concern is adding it, if there's space for that, but there definitely is green space to be able to put in a senior playground at the Richmond Public Library.
Can you say something? No, not now. No, you can just keep asking questions. Okay, I'll keep asking questions. Well, I would just like to say that on the other sheet, the options, I think that actually this piece of paper, that the library really needs to be aggressive about the roofs in hopes that there will be more rain, and we don't want buckets of water sitting in the lobby of the library.
Commissioner? I have, Commissioner Dunning, go ahead.
I just have a question about the expanding from 1 day a week and then going, leapfrogging from 3 to 5 now. And it sounds like, yes, there's pent up demand and the counselor is fully booked 1 day a week. I'm always a little wary of going to 5 and then realizing that there's not enough demand and then having to pull back to 3. It's easier to go from 1 to 3 to 5 than it is to go from 1 to 5 to 3. So I'm just kind of curious is there that much demand that we really think it's got to be 5 out the gate? Or if you can tell me a little bit more about the thought process behind that. It's a small, in the overall scheme of things, it's not a huge line item, but I'm curious.
I think our Chief of Community Programs and Partnerships, Michelle Jeffers, would be in the best position to speak to the history of this program, the level of service we've had previously, the demand, and the thought process around 3 days versus 5 days.
Right. Sorry, can you hear me? What? Okay, sorry. Hi, this is Michelle Jeffers. So we had it going to 3 days a week for a while last year because we were the recipients of some extra hours that other community groups were not using, and we found that they were being used very heavily here at the main library. That's why they shifted some meeting clients from, say, the LGBT History Center, which was one of the grantees. They came in and had their clients meeting us here at the library. And so we were able to use up that time, which is why we came up with the proposal for 5 days. When that grantee went away, we had to go back to only what we were paying for, which was 1 day a week. And we found that we definitely exceed the demand on the 1 day a week. So I think, 3 days a week would be great, and we would definitely make do with what we could get, but it seemed like there was some pent-up demand to go as much as 5 days a week.
So in some sense, we're picking up the slack from the lost grants.
Right.
Maureen, I have a question for you. I just want to make sure that I understand that you said that the option, the senior playground is an option 1, and it's so are you saying it's not an option 2 at all?
No, option 2 is everything that's in
Okay,
option
it's
1.
in addition to
Yeah,
it.
plus these proposals.
That's what I thought, but I just
Yeah.
wanted to make sure that I had.
Sorry.
That's okay. Well, one thing I'm going to make a comment that I don't think that it's optional for us to, as a commission, with this particular proposal before us, to consider a gender-neutral public restroom as an option. I don't think that who we are as a city and what we stand for as a public agency and how we serve the communities, that you can marginalize that community by knowing that a budget item came forward to support their humanity and for us not to support it. So fundamentally, I think that it's not even an option. I think it's a must. That's just my take on it. And I know that many of the commissioners agree with that same line of thinking. The other piece is that I also want to concur with Commissioner Mall around the facilities and maintenance infrastructure, particularly for the roofing. If any of the individuals were in the library during some of the last downpour, there were definitely buckets, not Home Depot buckets, but there were buckets in the atrium of the library, which is not a very welcoming. And obviously we had our proper custodial services, and our staff is wonderful, but it just didn't look quite right for the National Public Library of the Year to have buckets of water coming down. So I just think that we may need to put some resources into the maintenance of this beautiful city treasure. Our buildings are treasures as much as the people that work in them and the things that are contained with them, and that we have to do everything we can as a public body to maintain that for the public good. And then, I am a big fan of anything that helps people move through and fulfill their potentiality. And I think financial coaching is one of the things in which we can really get at some really basic financial inequity issues. How is wealth accumulated? It's passed down from generation to generation, and the ways in which people are marginalized and left out of the wealth promise and the economic justice promise. A lot of it has to do with how do you go about managing your money. I didn't learn how to manage my money till much later in life, and so and I had a lot of resources of people around me, so I can just imagine how difficult this is. So I just wanted to put on record that all 3 of these amendments in option 2, I think that the gender-neutral restroom is not an option, and I'm not sure that the maintenance on the roof is an option either. And I really am very much in support of the line item for the increase in our successful financial coaching program. Are there any other thoughts on the budget? Commissioner Lee?
I'm ready to move on.
Oh, he's ready to go. Okay. Seeing that there's no further discussion at this moment, I call question, is there a motion to move?
Yeah, I move to approve option 2 of the budget.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve option 2 of the fiscal year 21 and 22 budget options. All those members of the board of the commission say aye.
Aye.
All those who, first of all those who approve it say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And all those who oppose. We have approved option number 2 for fiscal year 21 and 22. So congratulations on the budget.
Thank you.
So we're going to move on to our city librarian's report, and this is an opportunity for the city librarian and his team to give us announcements as well as tell us about the activities of the San Francisco Public Library.
Thank you, President Wardell. We have a number of reports this evening, and I'm pleased to introduce our first presenter. We have Alice Chan, who is the Technical Services Manager for our Collections and Technical Services Division. And this evening, she has a report about our preservation unit and some good news to share. The right button.
Good evening, Commissioner. Good evening, Michael and Maureen. Thank you for having me here today. I'm sorry, I'm still battling a cold. My name is Alice Chen. I am the Technical Services Manager, and I'm here today to talk to you about the Preservation Unit and provide you with an update with the reclassification process. So just want to let you know, before 1989, there were actually no preservation work being done on any of the San Francisco Public Library materials. This all changed on October 17, 1989. On that fateful Tuesday, a 6.9 magnitude earthquake known as the Loma Prieta earthquake caused significant damage to our collection in our San Francisco History Room and Book Arts and Special Collection. Materials were contracted out for conservation at that time, but that process proved to be costly and inefficient. With that in mind, with the evaluation of the process, we decided to lead the work back into in-house, and that led to the creation of the book repair and bindery units. And fast forward to 1992, the unit's scope of work and responsibility had expanded beyond just book repairs and included an element of conservation to it. Hence, the unit was renamed the Preservation Unit to better reflect the work that they do. However, the staff working at that unit were still classified as book repairers. Sorry, can I move the mic? It's kind of hard for me. Sure. Thank you. From there, the long journey of getting Preservation Unit staff reclassified began. In 2014, Library Administration worked with the City Department of Human Resources and the local SEIU representative to understand and address the situation. Documentation was presented to demonstrate the work that the Preservation Unit currently does. With the evidence, the proposition of making 2 new classifications with salary that align with the 3616 and 3618 classes were devised. And that led to the new classification being developed and posted in 2019. Fast forward to this year. On January 6, 2020, the Civil Service Commission met and to discuss the status grant request. And I'm happy to let you know that the status, that it was approved unanimously. And when I talked to the preservation staff, they all expressed tremendous gratitude to our city librarian, Michael Lambert, and our own in-house human resource department for their commitment to address the discrepancy and really moving this issue along. The success of the reclassification helps retain the deep knowledge our specialists have obtained over the years and will help us retain new talents in the future so that we can continue to preserve San Francisco history. And here are some of the typical treatments the the Preservation Unit does every day. They usually fall into the 3 big categories: the book conservations, book repairs, and paper conservations. Here, the following pictures demonstrate the condition of a few items after they were damaged and the vastly improved condition after the subsequent restoration by the Preservation Unit. Now I would like to take a moment to thank all the parties involved who helped bring this process to fruition. First and foremost, our own city librarian, Michael Lambert, the Civil Service Commission, the Department of Human Resource, our own internal human resource department, and the local SEIU 10-1. Last but not least, I would like to thank our preservation staff for their strong dedication to their craft and for their help in cementing the unit's ability to preserve San Francisco history for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Next up, we have Suzanne Beatty, our manager of the Mobile Outreach Services Unit, and she's joined by Alejandro Gallegos, Community Engagement Manager. They have a report on our Mobile Outreach Services Unit.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Thank you for having us. We're thrilled to be here to update you on Mobile Outreach Services, referred to as MOS, which, as you know, includes our bookmobiles. I'm Alejandro Gallegos, and this is Suzanne Beatty, the MOS manager, who will begin by talking about how we view mobile outreach services.
Thank you very much. So first of all, we define and describe our services by service lines rather than by the vehicle name. We see the vehicles more as tools utilized to deliver our collections, services, and programming. In the subsequent slides, I will be going over each of these service lines in a little more detail. Our STEM and STEAM service line focuses on youth from toddler to late teens. Joseph, pictured here at the top of the table, is the STEM librarian. He brings programs on one-off to series-based formats. He's adept at customizing his programs to suit the needs of our partners. What does that mean? For preschoolers, he may have simple games encouraging play and exploration with robots. Or for older youth, it may be a series of coding programs. Our adult services line visits senior residences, community centers, and assisted living facilities on a monthly basis. Jeremy, the adult services librarian, provides ready reference and reader advisory services. He also cooks up fun and engaging craft programming for his patrons. Let me just go back. The interior of the library on wheels has been decorated to feel like a cozy den with a framed portrait of an author of the month, as well as a retro-style Bluetooth radio highlighting artists that we have on CD to check out. We visit a variety of parks, preschools, daycares, and after-school programs around San Francisco. Eve, the librarian on this service line, performs a musical story time at our 4 park stops, as well as delivering a story time at each of the sites she visits. She's a strong advocate of the Every Child Ready to Read trainings. She works closely with teachers to support their curricula and support system-wide initiatives like Summer Stride. The Mobile Outreach Services Unit is the primary library service for Treasure Island. We visit twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Beginning in fiscal year 2019, we transitioned our Thursday visit to focus on makerspace activities, where island youth can explore a variety of digital tools or participate in a guided tech program.
So what we'd like to communicate with this graphic are the concepts of collaboration and cross-pollination, and we at MOS recognize 3 main avenues for collaboration. First, the partnerships and relationships with outside stakeholders. So that includes schools, parks, community centers, on, HSA, different city departments. Second, we collaborate within SFPL, most often with our branches division, both doing events at branches and also doing things within neighborhoods where it makes sense for the local branch to also be involved. And third, we collaborate within our particular unit. There's a wonderful spirit of teamwork, and this graphic tries to get at the synergy that's created within this team. And this is a way to illustrate the type of teamwork that happens, and the type of teamwork that's necessary in a nimble unit where experiences aren't always standard. So there are, for example, some sites that are very busy, requiring more than the usual staff, with everyone attending having to do some of everything. There are musical talents down here that are shared not only for story times, but also at senior centers and park stops, and there are coverage needs where everyone has to pitch in to do story times or STEM programs, or where we may need others to drive one of our vehicles. So this photo on the right shows our STEM librarian keeping up with his storytelling skills while our children's librarian's on vacation. And these are some recent trends from fiscal years 2017, 2018, and 2019. If it's a little hard to read, our patron count, which is the top graphic, so those who entered our vehicles went from 21,900 to 27,300 to 38,400. Our service hours, the hours that we were effectively open, that our vehicles were open for business, went from 1,209 to 1,238 to 1,474. The number of programs we provided went from 220 to 262 to 484. So, this is a good one. So where do we go? This first map on the left is a map of where we were in fiscal year 2019. It details the different service lines and where they stopped. The second map is interesting. It's almost a duplicate of the first one, but it illustrates our stops overlaid on a map of what I'll refer to as low usage blocks. So those gray areas are blocks that either less than 15 households visited their local branch, or less than 36% of households on that block visited their local library. So that's what those gray areas are. This second map was generated relatively recently by the library's research analytics team, and you've probably seen this map by itself, but it's good for us in MOS to see this graphic and to use it as a measure of where we go and who we're potentially serving and showing the gaps of branch service. And so, who are we at MOS?
Okay, thank you. So this is the staff that make up the mobile outreach team. As far as the team is concerned, minus myself, I can say that I am very proud of every one of them. These 11 people bring their unique talents and experiences to the job every single day. They're dedicated to our mission as well as to the patrons we serve. They really go above and beyond quite regularly. And there's some seriously strong people in this unit. This guy is lifting a bookmobile. So mobile outreach really wouldn't be what it is without the synergy of this entire team. Okay, so just as our staff demonstrate collaboration and flexibility, we have an array of vehicles that we use and interchange as needed to deliver service. The ability to mix and match helps support us and stay nimble and responsive to the needs of the community. For example, sites where a large vehicle isn't practical, staff use a city car from Local Motion to bring programming directly into the partner space. Or if a vehicle is being serviced for any length of time, another vehicle can be repurposed for a stop or a special event. Our newest additions are the cart, doesn't have a proper name yet, maybe we'll just keep that one, and the new youth mobile. So the cart allows us to have a compact, streamlined, self-contained way to transport program materials to our partner sites. It also gets a lot of other uses at special events like Sunday Streets, where the cart holds the equipment that provides different STEAM and STEM experiences for the public. And we're really excited about our new youth mobile, the most recent addition. We just had a soft launch this week and are currently testing it out on the children's routes. Just today, I'd like to share with you some feedback we got from a very important patron, a little 4-year-old boy at Jefferson Preschool, who exuberantly yelled out upon entering the new vehicle, "You guys have the best bookmobiles ever." And without further ado, the last slide.
Oh, I love that photo.
So I don't know if you recognize the vehicle or the person in front, but that is, you will probably see this vehicle around, and if you do, please honk or don't honk. Thank you again. Thank you for having us, and we'd like to thank you for your time, letting us share a little bit about mobile outreach services with you this afternoon.
Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you, Suzanne. Can I get the clicker, please? Thank you so much. All right, next, I want to acknowledge the brilliance and hard work of 2 of our division chiefs on our leadership team. Michelle Jeffers Chief of Community Programs and Partnerships, and Tom Fortin, our Chief of the Main Library. A year ago, these two ignited a special partnership with the French Consulate, SF MoMA, and KQED to host the Night of Ideas in our flagship main library. This past Saturday, we hosted part 2 around the theme Living on the Edge, an adaptation of the international theme Etre Vivant. It was a smash hit again, with numerous improvements year over year. Notably, the entire building was activated this time, and the speakers and performances were more widely distributed throughout, and it was a much more comfortable experience for everybody. It was remarkable, captivating speakers, performances on every level of the main library. Congratulations, Tom and Michelle. Somehow you outdid yourselves. And a huge thanks to our library staff who worked into the wee hours Sunday morning. I want to give a shout out to our security and custodial and engineering and media services staff who made the magic happen for over 5,000 visitors. And I want to thank you, commissioners, for your participation as well. It was great to see you all there. In closing, Michelle, you might want to come up here. I want to give a shout out to the Mid-Continent Public Libraries and the Kansas City Public Library for their friendly banter about the Super Bowl on social media the past couple of weeks. I want to congratulate begrudgingly the Kansas City Chiefs on winning the Super Bowl. And in keeping with the challenge issued to me by Stephen Potter, Director of the Mid-Continent Public Libraries, I will now publicly don a Kansas City Chiefs hat. Our staff at the main library, they've also been good sports about this. They've curated a book exhibit on the first floor. This display honors Kansas City and the state of Missouri. So the display highlights fiction and nonfiction by Kansas City or Missouri authors, books set in or about these places. This has been good-natured fun, and hopefully our San Francisco 49ers can avenge the loss next year. So that concludes the city librarian's report.
Okay, now you can take it off.
Yes.
Thank you. We're going to move into our public comment.
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. I'm glad we got some time for the other side here. And I'm glad there's a topical, sounds like an interesting topical display that's timely, that I'm always glad to see at the library and wish we would have more of. The first thing, speaking of topical, is I demand a recount. This map with the gray areas looks like there's a low reading area dangerously close to where I live. And I certainly don't want to be slandered by anything like that, or I'm sure my neighbors read quite a lot. And I have to say that a suspicious looking portion of this is that there's a gray section to the west of Golden Gate Park, which, as far as I know, doesn't have anybody living except possibly people swimming in cold water and surfers. I don't think there's anybody living there. So it doesn't surprise me, although I don't know why that's shown as a low reading area. In any case, I think this is very interesting, and I think this would be something that the library could use for planning a whole range of other stuff, not just the mobile units, but figure out what's going on and why, and what can the library do. Because it looks like quite a bit of the city is in the low reading category, however you define it. I wanted to say that I'm very happy to hear that what sounded like a very, very serious problem with the preservation department looks like it has been dealt with in a way that is positive and good for employees, materials, and of course the public. I would like to say that it took, as far as I'm concerned, a very brave librarian who came here multiple times and gave extensive critiques of the management, and that was, if I may say, prior management, prior city librarian to Michael Lambert, but critiqued in general the management and the way that people were being treated and the way that the materials were. So I'm very happy that this serious matter looks like it's been satisfactorily resolved. And with respect to the Night of Ideas, there's quite a bit to be said about that, but I have to say that the idea that you have to have tickets in advance, that you had to have access to a computer, that you had to have email, that you gave the ticketing to an outside agency which has been hustling folks who have signed up with it, Eventbrite, that they were hustling you right on the spot for signups with Facebook and others. And I had to have a librarian help me, and even the librarian could not print out the tickets. Luckily, the email cover had numbers on it that were able to be used at the entrance. But it was an enormous barrier to access as far as I'm concerned, and should not be something where the library sponsors something that at least there's no alternative way to get tickets within the library when you show up. Frankly, I think it should be first come, first served. The ticket said it's not a guaranteed entry anyway.
Thank you.
Commissioners, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. The San Francisco Public Library has one of the greatest collections of books, photos, documents, and other items in the nation. Without the absolutely critical work of the preservation unit, there would be a loss not only of the physical items, but a literal loss of the history of the city of San Francisco, the state of California, and of the United States of America. The conservation and preservation of the SFPL collection requires a level of expertise, skill, dedication, and hard work that deserves the deep admiration and appreciation of every citizen of the city of San Francisco, and I hope the person who represented them here tonight will pass on that idea. While many bemoan the digital divide and other conditions which lead to the unequal and unfair treatment of many of our citizens, the staff members of the mobile outreach services should take great pride in what they do. They are literally a lifeline to many of the citizens in this city who are underprivileged and underserved. While most of us can access library service in myriad ways, these librarians touch those who, but for the lack of their efforts, would be partially or completely disenfranchised. And we saw the gray areas on the map, and we know that those folks don't always have any choice or very few choices. And so again, I think Suzanne Beatty should, and I hope she will, extend my appreciation for the hard work and effort and excellent results that they produce.
Thank you. Further public comment?
Good evening, Commissioners. Andrea Grimes, President of the Librarians Guild, SEIU Local 1021. I'm also Program Manager up in Book Arts and Special Collections on the 6th floor. This has been a long time coming, and I just want to say wow and wow. Thank you, Michael, for all your hard work in stepping up and making sure that the Preservation Department is fully recognized and compensated for not only their hard work, but for their amazing talent and complete mastery of the conservation process in changing, correcting, fixing, improving, turning their magic on all of our collections. They are an incredible group of people who have taken on the challenge of working in preservation and have just completely amazed all of us in all of the work that they do. And without Michael's help and the collaborative efforts of all the people who were up on the screen, we would not be here today congratulating ourselves and and everybody else about what has happened in the Preservation Department. So thanks again, Michael. And to the Civil Service Commission, HR, DHR, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Further public comment? So commissioners, we have an opportunity to have a discussion on the city librarian's report. We had several very wonderful presentations. I'll open it up now for any commissioner comments or questions. Commissioner Lee?
Yes. I have a couple of questions in the case of the preservation one. Are they, the preservation, after it's done, are they going to be also digitalized as a preservation?
It's my understanding that the preservation department really makes sure their top priority is to conserve the item at hand any way, any mean they can. I don't think there is a thought of digitalize those material, because that's why they're going through those treatment to ensure the life of the item itself.
Okay. Is there digital preservation?
We do have our digital, we have a separate digitized department on the 5th floor that will handle such special items. And as far as I'm concerned, the 6th floor, which houses most of these materials, do have plans to digitize some of these, or if not all of the items. But because I don't work with them, so I can't really speak for them.
Yeah. Since it's of value, I'm just wondering if it could be given priority. Because if there were a fire, whatever that's preserved would be gone. But if you digitize it, at least you have the sort of content, all this taken care of. So
Absolutely.
Just an idea to be considered about that.
Thank you for the recommendation.
That's a good work about preservation. So
Yes.
I'm glad to hear the history being preserved. That's
Thank
just
you.
an idea. The second one is about the mobile unit. Yeah, just wondering how early on there was a comment about the seniors. The digital mobile, so to speak, in some ways would help to outreach to the senior. The program shows that a lot of stuff, but it covers a lot. But the senior doesn't come out.
I'm unsure. What's the question?
Can you talk about the service to our senior citizens and older
to
adults?
the senior patrons.
So traditionally we have these vehicles and they go to these different neighborhoods. But we also recognize that's still not maybe the best way for all of our populations to experience the library. So a recent example of this is one of our assisted living senior homes here in the Tenderloin didn't really want our vehicles there anymore. They weren't really serving their residents. Only one or two would maybe come out at a time. Suzanne and the flexibility of this unit were thinking, well, we know there are people in here who value these services, so they came up with a way, they decided to start doing their library services inside the site. So it's not just, we're trying to move away from just a bookmobile, but thinking about it as mobile outreach. How can we reach people that are hard to reach? And part of it is seniors who getting from their assisted living home down to the sidewalk, down to the curb can be hard. So the pictures that we showed up here were our programs that were happening where they are in their spaces. And sometimes that doesn't necessarily mean one of our large vehicles goes. It means that they get a city car, they load up that cart, they take whatever materials they need, and they themselves go into those spaces to serve our patrons. Is that kind of what?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. That answers my question, because
and I like
any of the things there, it does not sort of come out.
I like that question because it also illustrates the flexibility that they have to have, and it's not just seniors. Our public housing sites, oftentimes we cannot park there. Geographically, it's hard for us to get one of our big vehicles there. So they will get a smaller van. They will arrange with the program directors there. They will do programs like tech programs or reading clubs or whatever it is, and they will do them there. And it's not necessarily seniors, but a lot of them are seniors. Kids programs, tech programs, not just on our vehicles, but we are mobile and we're outreach. So we also think that means doing it where they are as well.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
Any other commission comments, questions? Commissioner Mall?
I think everything that the city librarian reported on is very exciting and very positive, and my congratulations to everyone. I have a couple little comments. The small white local motion, could that be painted as nicely as the other?
So these vehicles don't belong to us. They're part of a city pool of cars that we just book, and the staff are all trained like other city employees. Yeah.
Because it makes such a nice statement to see these. The other
I agree.
ones
That would be great to have
go through town.
our own dedicated car that's decorated.
Okay, never mind. Okay. Okay, the other thing was, I was a participant in the Night of Ideas, and I did sort of have to drag my husband, I'm sorry to say, but it's just the way it is. And since he went Saturday night, he has not stopped telling people how fabulous it was. And he actually takes a class at the Fromm Institute, and one of the women that were on one of the panels is one of his teachers, and they were discussing how fabulous it was, but we couldn't even get in because there were so many people. We've told people there were 10,000 people, not 5, but I don't know how you got that number. But I just hope that you do this, that you do this every year. And at first I thought maybe it needed more publicity, but I don't think so, because how could anyone, I don't think the building could have accommodated more people. I really don't. Yeah, so I don't know how you do the tickets. I don't know the first come, first serve, or the time stamp on the ticket. I have no idea. But I, for one, didn't have any problem with Eventbrite, and they didn't. I mean, they try to get me onto Facebook or whatever, but I just ignore it. So I just thought it worked very smoothly, and it felt very safe, I must say. And I thought people were just thrilled to be there, all ages, all ages. And there was enough chairs for sort of people who wanted to sit, and there were enough spaces for people to hang out, and enough music and enough dance, and really, it just was spectacular.
Night Ideas is so much fun. A lot of fun.
And I missed your dancing.
Yeah, you missed my dancing.
Missed my dancing. Missed your dancing.
So thank you all. I just want to say it was a really very good city library report. Alice, thank you so much for representing and telling us the story of the preservation unit. So wonderful. Thank you both for the work that you're doing in reaching those that cannot make it to libraries. Nothing like the bookmobile. The bookmobile is awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you, Michelle and Tom, for just the really incredible creation of turning the public library into the modern day public square. Yeah, it was a lot of dancing, a lot of fun that way, but boy, did we have some great discussions and inquiries and, back and forth conversations. And so that was really great to kind of feel like you're in a living library, living library. It was so alive. So with that, I think we are going to move on to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes of December 19th, 2019. And with that, we will first call our public comment.
Commissioners, Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. And for any who might wonder why I seem so hostile, for more than a decade, I battled with former city librarian Luis Herrera to protect the right of free speech and the preservation of that free speech in the public record. You don't like the things that I and others have to say, and for years, Ms. Blackman was allowed to substitute her version of what we said in place of what we actually said. We were someone to study the history of this Library Commission. I hope they will not only note not only my comments, but the complete and absolute lack of any meaningful response. I can't remember one single time that a single library commissioner said, no, you're incorrect, and here's the correct information. All they did was kvetch, moan, and harass me. The city librarian and the library commissioners, despite their years of harassment, have failed to diminish or disprove any of my public comments. This is particularly true regarding the crime perpetrated on this institution by its support of the dishonesty that is the Friends of the San Francisco Public Library. They take millions of dollars a year, use 10% or less of that money to actually support the library, which is what is on your website. The library website has a link to the Friends which says support the library. I wonder how many of them would be pleased to know that 90% of what they give doesn't support the library. And when using that 10% or less of the money to actually support the library, they did so with dishonest and corrupt participation of the members of this Library Commission, both past and present. I think it is very clear that I have presented over the years numbers, and not one of you has the integrity to look at the numbers and consider the numbers. The Friends get literally millions a year, and the Board of Supervisors passes an accept and expend grant for $400,000 or less, which is 10% of what the Friends take in and put out. And I think you should be ashamed that you allow that to continue. And if you show any surprise at the corruption in this city, just remember you're part of it.
Thank you. Further public comment? So, commissioners, this requires an action. We have the minutes before us from December 19, 2019. Is there any discussion?
As Thomas Aquinas says, I move to approve the minutes of December 19 as given.
Is there a
second?
Second? Okay, so we have a motion as well as a second to approve the minutes of December 19th, 2019. All the members of the commission who are in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All those who are opposed. Okay, the minutes of December 19th, 2019 are approved as is. And we move to our final item, which is adjournment. And this requires both a public motion and a public comment. So we'll move into our final public comment.
Ray Hartz, Director, San Francisco Open Government. And I want to make a comment about minutes of this commission in general. I read and reviewed the minutes of the last meeting, and I saw once again there was an indication of adjourning the meeting in honor of someone, and there was absolutely no information for the public included in the packet, which means once again you have slipped right back to where you were, where you want to honor somebody, but not honor them enough to even tell the rest of the people here at these meetings or anybody reviewing your agenda who that person was. And I think that is dishonest, and it is also disrespectful to the person you're supposedly honoring. We're honoring you. but we are not going to bother to tell anybody who you were and why we are honoring you, which is the least they deserve.
Public comment?
Peter Warfield, Executive Director of Library Users Association. I've said this before, as you may by now know, and I'll say it again. Other bodies, and this one included in the past, have an item at the end of the meeting, typically at the end, which is to provide an opportunity for you to suggest items that you would like to see on future agendas. I very much appreciate when you have comments, questions, and so on. Commissioner Lee, when you asked a question that led to an explication of what the mobile unit does, I was very glad to hear about that. And it was nice to hear that they used some initiative with respect to the seniors in getting into their place rather than having them come into the library's bookmobile space. I had wondered when I saw the picture that they showed, which we didn't evidently find again, I wondered why that space looked oddly unlike a bookmobile. And thanks to your question, I think the answer is that it wasn't the bookmobile, but their initiative in going into the place where the folks were actually located. But those kind of questions and all kinds of other questions you might have, or explanations or explications that you would like, are also the sorts of things that you can say, I'd like to hear about this, or I'd like to have a discussion about that at a future meeting. I think you are doing a disservice to the public when you don't insist before you adjourn, once again, that that sort of item, which empowers you to represent the public in what you'd like to see in future agendas, I think you do a disservice to the public that you're presumably serving if you don't insist that that item should be back on the agenda every time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay, seeing that there's none, we need a motion and a second to adjourn our meeting.
I second.
We have both a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed. We adjourn this meeting. Thank you.